It's a pity when you think you found true love, but instead you let psychopaths into your life and they stick to you like gum, or a bad case of the chicken pops that show up without warning. This is a story about my traumatic experience with a girl that extended for at least 3 to 4 years. This was about a girl that I knew, let's call her Carrie. Carrie was a very smart and attractive young girl. She was 18 while I was 19. She seemed very independent and very caring of everyone around her. We just assumed that she was one of those girls who really didn't need a boyfriend since she gloated about it all the time. But somehow she got herself a boyfriend. Me. We found ourselves talking one day and we found so much in common with each other I fell in love with her that same day. She seemed so sweet and innocent, and I thought she had good intentions, like I did. I was wrong. A month and a half into our relationship, things began to go off the rails when she started noticing this one girl who would talk to me frequently. She began to ask me questions about her and who she was, and if we were seeing each other in secret. I kind of understood considering the girl was kind of flirting with me and I was kind of flirting back, but I assured her that there was nothing going on. She didn't buy it though and accused me of cheating. I tried to explain to her, but she wasn't having it. She stormed off into the next room cursing, frantically, even angrily. I got up and left and decided to just not tell her that I was leaving for home. She texted me hours later and asked me why did I leave, we still had more to talk about. And I just told her that nothing was going on and there's nothing for her to worry about. She texted me a bunch of crazy angry texts that I won't go too much into detail about. The next morning, I woke up and found that my phone was blasted with 36 text messages from her. Carrie had started apologizing at first in the text messages, but then she started saying things like, if you don't answer me, I'm going to find that girl and slit her throat. I'm going to find that girl or run her over. I'm going to find that girl and hope that our entire family burns in a fire as I light it ablaze. This girl was obviously mentally ill, and I needed to cut her off immediately. I didn't think that I could have the courage to do it, but when I saw those texts, I knew that I needed to end this fast and not let it escalate into anything more intense. I confronted her the next day and told her that we needed to stop seeing each other and maybe we should see other people. Of course, she did not take this lightly and not take it very well and started ranting and screaming at me, saying a bunch of insane, crazy things that I can't even relay saying right now. She was critically crazy and needed some freaking help that I couldn't give her. She needed more help than I thought she did, because the things she said were truly insane, and something that shouldn't be coming from a girl's mouth, period. I walked away and went home and ignoring her pleas for me to come back. That same night, I received a knock on my window, followed by a second to third knock. I began to realize someone was throwing rocks in my window, so I opened it and saw that it was Carrie. She was standing outside trying to get my attention, and I told her to go home, that we're not talking, and she said, please, can we please talk? We need to discuss some few things. I know that you're angry, but there are things that we do need to talk about the relationship, and I know that we can work through it. I said there is no more relationship and you need to just forget it and move on. She walked off and came back with a shovel saying, I've killed her. I stopped right there in my tracks. She said she killed her. I didn't need a name to know who she was talking about. I've already heard the threat from the night before, so I knew what she was saying. I said, Carrie, you didn't. She said, I did. And that she could show me. She took me to the backyard where she said she had buried the body. She dug it up and there was nothing there. And she started laughing at me saying, I got you. You truly thought that I had killed her. The look on your face, it is so hilarious. I forgot to mention that Carrie was a psychopathic liar and would constantly lie about things for no apparent reason. But she lied to me about killing the girl that I used to speak to as a good personal close friend, and I almost cried. I was so angry with her that I told her I never wanted to see her again and to stay away from me at school. She tried to apologize, but I wasn't hearing it. I was so filled with rage and stupidity and embarrassment that I just walked off into the night, back to my house. This would go on for at least a couple days, where she would frequently come to my house and throw rocks on my window trying to get my attention, but I would ignore her. It began to happen at school, where she would try to approach me, but I would walk off before she could say anything. I did my best to avoid her. I even changed classes just so I didn't have to see her. Because in class, she would try to turn to me and be my partner in a science project or any project in general. I did not want to speak to her nor talk to her. But things got way worse than I thought they could. Did you think that the threats were bad? You have heard nothing yet. She began to start doing things that were somewhat outside of the law, but not really, considering stalking is not really a crime. She began to follow me around when I started talking to people, or just anywhere in general. She would follow me to the gas station, to the store, or to the library where I frequently would stay to read a book and to enjoy a peaceful, quiet time to myself. She would watch me constantly, and it was freaking me out. I asked the librarian to please ask her to leave, but the librarian said she couldn't really do anything considering she hasn't done nothing. I began to just start trying to ignore her, but she would approach me in the library from time to time, trying to get my attention and start up a conversation. I had no choice but to change libraries and not go back to that one again, considering that was the closest one to my house. I was angry with her. It began to go on for on and on, month after month. The same thing. Knocks at my windows, rocks tapping it, her trying to get my attention to get us back together. Finally, I reached my breaking point and went to the dean. To my surprisement, he listened. He told me that something has been going on with Carrie lately, that her grades have been dropping. I began to think maybe this is some sort of miracle from God. Then maybe this would be the reason why he'll get her expelled and have her leave permanently. I was dead wrong. This only fueled her rage when she heard that she was being expelled for the lack of her improvement on her grades. She began to blame me and say it's all Ben's fault. He did this. This is his fault. He is a coward to admit that he still loves me. It was insane, the things that I was hearing. I was only in the next room over. That same night, she came to my house again, tapping on the window, but this time things began to get more insane. She had a knife. She had on this strange, funny-looking dress that looked torn up from the bottom, and she had her hair in somewhat of a bun, but a nappy bun. One half of her hair was still slitting down her side of her face, but the other half was in this messy bun. Her makeup had been smeared all over her cheeks, and it was completely just looked like something out of a horror movie. I didn't know what to say or what to do, but to go to my parents' rooms and ask my dad to get her off the property. My dad confronted her, and she tried to attack him, but he quickly subdued her. My dad is a police officer, by the way, and he is trained to do this oftenly. He quickly subdued her and had her arrested and taken back to the police station for questioning. She admitted right there that she was planning on killing my parents and kidnapping me. I was so surprised when my father told me this that I almost began to cry right then and there. I know what you're thinking. Would a big man like you, 19 years old, crying over an 18-year-old girl trying to kill you? But you do not understand the amount of fear. This has been going on for months, and it hasn't let up. And now that it's gotten more aggressive and more violent, I began to wonder what was next. What crazy things would she do if she was alone with me? I was starting to panic and wanted to get out of that school. Even though she didn't go there, she would frequently just park there and watch me from the freaking court outside of the school. She would just sit there and videotape me and take pictures and use binoculars even. It was like living in a real Lifetime movie. This girl was completely warped in the head and did not understand boundaries when she saw it. She crossed all lines without regard and just completely floored me. But this torment was only in its early stages. This nightmare would continue on and on for a couple more years. It was only months that this has begun, and like I said, this has been going on for 2 or 3, 4 years. This is nothing compared to what comes next. I did not understand this girl's mind, nor did I understand what was the start of it. But later on in the future, I had saw Carrie again in the supermarket. She didn't notice me at first, but she looked different. Her face was sunken in, and she had bags under her eyes. She looked pale and almost skinny. The second she saw me, she flashed this glare at me. A glare that could put fear in the heart of a lion. She was completely still the same way. Nothing has changed after all these months I haven't seen her. 6 months have passed since the last time I saw her since she's been arrested. But now I'm seeing her again in the supermarket, and I realize that the nightmare has begun again. And I had to get myself out of there as quickly as possible. I made an excuse to my mom that I needed to just wait in the car because I did not want to be in there. It made me feel so frustrated that she was back. So I decided to go home and just lay down on my bed and start crying to myself. I know what you're thinking, baby, baby, baby. Completely crying to himself because of a girl, but you do not understand the amount of fear like I said before. This was only in its early stages, as I said, and this would continue to get even more dangerous and more violent than it had been before. Carrie had came to my house again and started up her old usual habits, tapping glass and knocking at the door all of a sudden. That was new. She didn't usually knock at the door. She knocked at the door and started screaming erratically. My dad asked if she was on something, and we thought that it was kind of humorous. Well, at least my mom and my dad and my sister, but I did not think it was humorous. I knew that it was a lot more deeper than that. I knew that she wasn't using, I just knew that she was insane. Her mind was warped and knew no boundaries. She wasn't afraid of crossing boundaries now. That's if she ever was before. She was screaming, and somehow she had this branch that was even bigger than herself, and somehow she was holding it up. But she was swinging it at the door, trying to break in. My dad knew right then and there that this wasn't a joke anymore, and he called some of his officer buddies to pick her up, and they did. The next day, she was on bail. Her parents have paid her $30,000 bail and let her go out. And I began to just wonder to myself, how is she getting away with this with no consequences? How does she keep getting away with this with all the threats that she has made and attempts to break into our house? It made me wonder because, well, she's a rich girl. Maybe she can get away with anything. Or the cops were just too incompetent or stupid to really realize how dangerous this girl really was. That made me even more afraid of her, that she was rich and she could get away with any crime she did without any consequences. The couple days have followed after that incident, and I've noticed nothing strange, nor have I seen Carrie anywhere, but I've noticed this weird, strange car. This weird pink car that comes around our neighborhood. Now, we live in a neighborhood where everyone knows everyone. In fact, the whole town knows everyone in there. There's no one who does not see a new neighbor and does not recognize them to be new. Every time someone moved in, it would be once, maybe 5 or 7 years. And as soon as this new person would move in, everyone, well, mostly people, will know about it. But no one knew anything about this pink car. In fact, no one noticed any new neighbors moving into any of the empty houses that are on sale. This pink car just completely appeared out of nowhere, like it just somehow teleported from a different dimension. But I began to notice how this car would just appear at any place that I was at. The cars had tinted windows, so I couldn't see who the driver was. But I just knew deep in my gut that this car was following me, even though I tried to brush it off. It would appear at random at any time or place that I was at. I worked in a grocery store now, and at the same grocery store where I had saw Carrie a couple months ago. I worked there now as a cash register, and I would frequently see that same pink car just sitting there, but no one ever get out of it. It would sit there for hours on end, and it would only leave around the time that I would leave. I remember one day that I was at the cash register, and I noticed that same pink car again, but I noticed something else. I noticed someone else in a hoodie pacing back and forth in front of the windows. I couldn't see who it was, considering they had a mask on. FYI, this happened around the time of COVID, so everyone was wearing a mask. This person was completely wearing black, so I couldn't see who they were. They were hiding themselves very good. They were pacing back and forth constantly. I thought maybe they were just trying to go to the next store over, considering we had two stores connected to each other. But I noticed that for at least 30 minutes they did this over and over again. Pace at the windows, doing non-stop. I began to get paranoid and decided to call my shift. Someone happily took the shift as it did give extra pay. I left, and that person just turned around in my direction and just watched me go into my car. As soon as I started the car, the person ran into the pink car and got in. I began to realize that that person owns that pink car and is following me. It has to be. But then something clicked. Something that frightened me. I had called my sister a couple hours after the ordeal had happened and asked her, "What car does Carrie drive?" She said she wasn't sure. She hasn't seen Carrie in months. Carrie assumedly had left the state and went with her mother in California. We live in New York, so I just brushed it off and maybe thought maybe it was someone else. Until I decided to call Carrie's mother and ask her if Carrie was still there. She said Carrie moved back to New York a couple of months ago. I knew right then and there that Carrie was back and out for vengeance. Or maybe she was trying to live up to her word, like she said, kill my parents and kidnap me and do God knows what to me. I was truly in fear, and the anxiety and the pressure began to mount. I wonder what she was going to do next, what craziness she would do. But that is a time for another part of the story. I don't want to continue since this is getting too long, and want to make a little bit of suspense. To be honest with you, it gives me the chills writing this. It makes me wonder how things would have actually gone down if she did succeed in kidnapping me the day she said she was going to. But it's not like it hasn't happened. But we'll get to that another time.